In this video, I'm going to talk about the deficit bias using a political approach. This is called a deficit bias because the government has incentive to overborrow and so as to deplete the resources its opponent has so even if the opponent gets elected, it has got nothing to spend. And the deficit bias arises because there is an uncertainty about the re-election possibility in the next period. Okay, so the assumptions here is that there is not initial debt and there are two parties left and right, and they maximize their own utility, and there are only 2 periods. So the budget constraint of the government is this, and this is from the basic definition of the government budget constraint, and using the definition for debt equals budget deficit equals the debt in this period minus the debt in last period. We can get this budget constraint, and the government spending in either period is the sum of money spent by the left-wing party and the right-wing party. Okay, this is the utility of the incumbent party, I for incumbent and O for the other party. So in the first period it is this one, in the second period it is this one, and discounted, and also here is the possibility of re-election of the party. Okay, so let's rewrite the budget constraint using the fact that the tax revenue is collected from income and the tax rate is the same for both periods, and also G for both periods is consisted of spending by incumbent party and the other party. Also, I assume that Y2 is larger than Y1. Okay, so the incumbent party's problem is to maximize its utility here, and we can substitute G1 and G2I by rearranging these two, and we get this. Okay, so now we notice that VI is decreasing in both G10 and G20. So if the incumbent party wants to maximize its utility, obviously it wants to decrease the spending by the other party in both periods. So it sets GT0 equals 0 for T equals 1 or 2, and therefore GT is only consisted of one part, that is GTI, because this part is 0. Okay, we substitute this into this equation here, and then we get this. Now we do the first order condition. So the incumbent party chooses to maximize its utility by choosing the optimal budget deficit. Okay, so just differentiate this and set it to 0 and rearrange it. We get the okay, so the first thing to notice that it is larger than 0 because of this assumption, and the assumption that both B and rho are less than 1. So this part here will be positive and this is positive, so the whole thing is positive. And the second thing to notice that we have D is decreasing in row, so both the denominator and the numerator are, by checking both of them have row in it, and by checking them we can see that this is the case. Okay, let's consider the limiting conditions. So when row converges to 1, when row goes to 1, this is when the incumbent party is very sure that it will definitely get re-elected. And if it has a second period, the important result that we get is deficit smoothing. This is because it is very sure it can also spend in the second period rather than spending everything in the first period when it knows that it will get really elected. So from this we can get D in this case, and from these two conditions we can substitute D into them and get G1I and G2I. Right, so now G2I is a function of G1I, but it is smaller than G1I. So this is the case of deficit smoothing. And in the other limiting condition, when rho goes to 0, from here we can see that D is simply tau y2. Right, and using the same method we get G1I and G2I equals 0. Notice also that G2O is 0, so in the second period G2 as a whole is 0. So the incumbent party, knowing that it wouldn't get re-elected, chooses to spend everything it has in the first period, leaving no resource for the other party to spend in the second period. Okay, now we return to the question what it is called deficit bias. So it is caused by the fact that rho is between 0 and 1. It can't go to 1, and we note that here the D in the case of rho equals 1 is the minimum G you can get, because as rho falls, D will increase. Thus, higher uncertainty means the incumbent party is likely to spend more.